This is the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. Here's Rick Ucchino and SP3 on the Bleav Podcast Network.
What is going on, good people? Happy Tuesday afternoon. Happy Royal Rumble week. We have made it. Feels like it's been literally forever since it's been like a pay-per-view premium live event type week. And here we are, ready to rock and roll with the Royal. I said it feels like it's been forever. Usually we get one every 4 weeks with WWE. We haven't had one in, 8 weeks?
You didn't specify WWE. That's why I made the
enough.
face. I was like, I remember Wrestle Kingdom was just a few weeks ago. I remember Hard to Kill was just 2 weeks ago.
I'm talking about WWE, obviously. It was really weird not having that December pay-per-view, but the Royal Rumble is upon us. I'm trying to get hyped
Sorry,
up.
I like to watch women's wrestling, so I watch other stuff besides WWE.
Oh, dude, don't get me started. SP3 trying to get me good and pissed off before I even get through the intro. We will be talking about Raw 30 last night and the egregious mistake, I believe, that Triple H and company made on that show last night. Kind of an anti-Triple H show, to be completely honest with you, because there was really only 50 minutes of wrestling on the entire thing. They really went for more of the promo type stuff, but had to get those legends in there. Had to get Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, their screen time. Had to have an 11-minute D-Generation X promo to set up a meaningless 6-man tag match. But you couldn't have the match that you plugged all week and was arguably the most anticipated of the entire night, despite there being 2 title matches on the damn card. See, you already got me started. SP3. Appreciate everybody who's tuning in. Appreciate Queen and Frantic World and Ace and Noob and Santo with a good comment in here already. We will get to that. I promise you we will talk about Sonya Deville, so I am going to star that one. Make sure we get to your comment before we dive into everything. SP3, got to thank our friends over at BetOnline. They continue to be your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season and for every season, and without them, we wouldn't be here right now. They have everything from NFL playoffs to pro and college basketball, UFC, MMA. I believe WWE is up there as well. Get the latest odds, team matchup information, player news, and game trends, all at BetOnline with live betting options, free contests, live scores for almost any sport and game imaginable. Go to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. I said 50 and the percentage sign. Make sure to use our promo code BLEAV to get those rewards. That is BLEAV, betonline.ag. That is where the game starts. Appreciate everybody who's tuning in. Again, if you're new to the show, welcome. If you like what you hear, pound that subscribe button. The climb to 1,000 continues. Appreciate everybody who's already subscribed. And hit that thumbs up button while you're here as well, because that really, really drives up our audience. You have no earthly idea. We are going to be doing a Royal Rumble predictions show coming up on Thursday this morning. We got a very special guest, Cam Hawkins from The Ringer. He's going to be joining us. So that's going to drop Thursday at 9 a.m. So be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, I'll be at the Royal Rumble this weekend. I'm going to be at the Media Junket on Friday. There's going to be plenty that's going to be coming out from that here on the Bleav in Pro Wrestling Podcast YouTube channel and the regular channel as well. You can get us anywhere podcasts are available, SP3. That's Apple, Spotify. We're all over the place. iHeartMedia app. We're everywhere, baby. So make sure never to miss an episode of the Bleav in Pro Wrestling Podcast. SP3, we'll talk about what wasn't on the show last night, but let's start with the positives of Raw 30, okay? I like to focus on the positives and not harp on the negatives, but when the negatives are that egregious, I will harp on them. Let's start with the positives, though, okay? That opening segment last night, the trial of Sami Zayn, once we got past the Hulk Hogan mic problems and just Hulk Hogan being there at all, and the video package that we had already seen 4 times. Okay, so keep that in mind when we start talking about stuff that was cut for time restraints. This segment didn't start until 8 minutes into the show. Okay, so it wasn't as long as everybody said it was. It was really only about 20 minutes, which is, I think, fairly typical for an opening segment or match on Monday Night Raw. So let's ignore that. Let's try not to ignore those 8 minutes that were lost in the ether here. But this opening segment with Sami Zayn, and you had Paul Heyman as the prosecutor laying out his evidence for why Sami Zayn has been a plant this whole time. We saw him drop on SmackDown that he never liked Sami Zayn, and everything has set up for Sami to be guilty. And after he lays out his defense, Sami Zayn he's distraught, but he's kind of over it at this point. He's tired of the accusations. He's tired of the disrespect, and is frankly wondering if it's even worth all the effort that he's put into the bloodline. And ultimately, he decides it's not. SP3. He says, no, I have no defense. F y'all, basically. Roman Reigns gets pissed, sends Solo in to execute the man, or, the equivalent of executing the man. And then who steps up to his defense but Jey Uso, the man who wanted to kick this dude out of the bloodline from the get-go. It was absolutely beautiful storytelling last night. I don't care how long that segment went. It was great, and it sets up everything very nicely for what we believe is going to be going down this weekend at the Royal Rumble, which is ultimately the split between Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. I think that's what has to happen this weekend. But my goodness, you could not open up a show better than they did last night with this trial of Sami Zayn.
This was the best WWE in-ring talking segment since the Festival of Fendrip. This was beautiful storytelling from Sami's reaction to Paul Heyman as the prosecution, and the fact that WWE, for the first time in I think like a long time, they had months and months of footage to show. To pinpoint the different storyline beats and why Jey Uso had his doubts before Survivor Series, and why Sami, if you remember a lot of the stuff, like, when we did our review for SmackDown on another whatever channel, I mentioned that this whole started with Sami just wanting, he came off the loss at against Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania, and he wanted to prove himself as the locker room leader, and the locker room leader needs to have some value to the head of the table, to the tribal chief. And he was Randall from Resets, taking his notes as RK Bro and Drew McIntyre was talking trash about the bloodline, and he went back to Paul Heyman, who from the beginning, like he said during the segment last night, he did not like Sami. He did not want to deal with Sami, and then eventually he gave Sami time with Roman Reigns, and you saw Roman kind of listen, appease him, and then get involved with RK Bro and Drew McIntyre, and all of that set up the 6-man tag that was great at WrestleMania Backlash, and that was back in April of 2022.
I know.
9 months of footage that they could have pulled from, and you had Paul Heyman with the prosecution showing Sami not helping the Usos when they got jumped by Drew McIntyre, not hitting Kevin Owens with the steel chair, doing the 4 life, something that would have been just passed over at Survivor Series, and then bumping Roman Reigns. And then when they slowed it down and showed the clip, you saw even there on the Christmas Eve episode 2022 of SmackDown that Paul Heyman reacted to that like, oh, like even then they was like, oh no, we're gonna go back to this. And then to have Solo, who's just basically a henchman at this point. In the beginning, it seemed like Solo was a friend of Sami, because they showed with the defense that he took the chair shot for Sami with Drew McIntyre, and after that was when Solo for the first time spoke up for Sami when Jey was against him. He was like, no, I think Sami is actually right. I think Sami's cool. I want Sami to come out to the ring with him. But Solo has developed into this enforcer and henchman of the bloodline so much that he has no love for Sami. He has no emotion at all. He's just ready to hit somebody with a Samoan spike at the order of the tribal chief. So he just, he even thought about it a little, but he was like, nope, I'm the henchman. That's what I'm here for. And then to have Jey Uso, of all people, stop him, just that moment, holding up the arm and then saying, I got the defense. I got iMovie. I got iMovie too, Paul Heyman. This is the clips, and I got more clips of all the time Sami Zayn has come through, helping them in their tag team match against Matt Riddle and Shinsuke Nakamura. I saw a lot of people say that was the title unification match. No, that wasn't the title unification match. Roman helped them unify the titles. It was Sami that helped them retain it against Matt Riddle and Shinsuke Nakamura on the June 3rd, 2022 episode of SmackDown. He helped them against Sheamus and Butch back in December to retain the tag team titles. He took the bullet for Roman ahead of Clash at the Castle with Drew. Took the bullet for Solo with the steel chair shot to the back. It's like I love Jey Uso's promo as well, just talking about this man has taken so many bullets for us. He is bulletproof. I love you like a brother. And he was like, you saw the good in me even when I couldn't see it in myself, and that makes you family. And then everybody to have the thumbs up. This was just beautifully told. Everyone played their roles well. Even Jimmy, who was on the side of Sami. And now we saw that backstage segment just a few weeks back where he was like, you know, I've always liked Sami, but Roman, if you want to take him out, it's fine. And he's just sitting there all fine and dandy. And it took Jey. I don't think Jimmy would have done that, because Jimmy has kind of stood back and kind of bowed to the graces of Roman Reigns. It had to be Jey, because Jey is always the one who steps up to Roman and disagrees with Roman and will speak up against Roman. Like he said, I don't care what the tribal chief says, even when he had his issues with Sami Zayn. For him to be the defense, that was just perfect. The emotion on Sami Zayn's face, like he was just heartbroken from the Paul Heyman. Then he was heartbroken seeing all the times that he took bullets for the bloodline, or he was just so emotional because he didn't even think he needed all that proof to show his loyalty. He thought he already proved himself, but to hear Jey be the one to present that argument for him, he just had everything that was storytelling was sold from his face, and then hugging them afterwards. And then the tag team match on top of that, it was great because WWE did a great job of making it for the Raw tag team title. So you thought that it could change hands. So that was the first thing they did good. And then to have Jimmy Uso get injured, and then he's replaced. Jimmy Uso is injured, but Sami Uso is not, and him coming in.
And that was set up. That was set up a week ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was whenever the gauntlet match took place, and you had Adam Pearce come out and say, "Oh, well, Finn Balor can't continue. I'm gonna allow Dominic to sub in." That seemed like such a throwaway, dumb thing that they could do, but a decision like that by an official, and then they come back around, and Adam Pearce is like, well, shit, I did this for the Judgment Day, so I guess I have to do this for the Usos. I want to know if this means that Sami is now technically an undisputed tag team champion. It's kind of like Freebird rule, like it is with the New Day.
All the Usos are available to defend those tag team titles. Man, this was the best kind of starting like 45 minutes of a Monday Night Raw episode. I would say in nearly a decade. Like, it's been so long that I was that enthralled, that into every storyline beat of everything. And it builds up to, the Raw Rumble for Sami Zayn's final test, as Roman says. And I love the little tidbit of the backstage when he, after they won and defended the titles, Roman told Paul Heyman that Paul Heyman has to make sure that that Sami, he doesn't see Sami until the Raw Rumble. So is this really a final test for Sami Zayn, or is this really a final test for Paul Heyman? Because Paul Heyman might try to think of himself as the master manipulator and be like, call up Sami Zayn on Friday and be like, oh, the tribal chief wants you to be here, just so Roman sees Sami. And then it's like he's in trouble and he's out of the bloodline like Paul Heyman wants, because Paul Heyman was the head of the defense. He does not want Sami Zayn in the bloodline. He showed his loyalty to Roman Reigns and showed where his loyalty stands against Sami Zayn. So he might be thinking, oh, I'm going to be one step ahead of the tribal chief and I'm going to call Sami to SmackDown, but it's really a test for Paul Heyman. And then Paul Heyman is ejected because we saw Roman did that pretty easy in 2021. So why not? He can run back it again. It's so many different layers to this story and how it can develop. This is one of the best storylines in WWE history.
Yeah, it's the segment itself, the storyline itself is almost bulletproof. And we were talking about this on another channel with Dutch Mantel, and and he's critical about everything. And he even said they can't mess this up. Like, it's almost impossible for them to mess this up at this point. And you're right about Friday. It is going to be very interesting. Kevin Owens is going to be on the show. I find it very difficult to believe that Sami Zayn won't be on the show in some way, shape, or form. I think, they're going to find a way to set up what's going to happen on Saturday night. Now, what happens on Saturday night, that is going to be the most interesting thing of the entire week. I'm sorry, to the men's Royal Rumble, the women's Royal Rumble, all that. It's what happens between Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns, and Kevin Owens, and how that match ends. Does Sami Zayn's split from the blood? Because I firmly believe the split is happening on Saturday, especially if rumors are to be believed that Sami is going to be facing Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber in Montreal. There were photos of the commemorative chairs that were already being printed with Sami's face all over them. So this matchup to me is being set. So it's going to be very, very interesting, just to keep using that word over again, what happens and what's going to go down this coming Saturday at the Royal Rumble. Ace saying Solo's tweet afterwards was interesting. If you missed it, he tweeted out a photo of Jey Uso catching his arm before he delivered the Samoan spike, and it had just said, "Get off of me." You said that Solo's just kind of become this henchman. I think Solo is just living up to his name. He's out for basically himself, and he is kind of that hired gun. Don't forget, he wasn't sent by Roman Reigns. He wasn't recruited by Roman Reigns. He wasn't recruited by Paul Heyman. He was sent in by the elders. So I think he's always been kind of like on his own, like little lonely island here, even though he's been a part of the island of relevancy for several months now. So Solo's always going to be a wild card for me as far as the bloodline is concerned, because he was never put in by Jay, Jimmy. He was infused into the bloodline by the elders of the family. And it's a shame that they weren't able to make it to Raw, because I would have been interested to see how that segment would have shaken out. But what we got, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Now let's talk about what that brilliance meant for the rest of the show. SP3, I don't know about you personally. To me, what I was looking forward to the most on Raw 30 was the steel cage match between Becky Lynch and Bayley. That's what I was hyped for. That's what was advertised. That's what was set up in Cincinnati when I was there at Monday Night Raw. That's what was promised to us. They get to the top of the hour after a commercial-free hour of Raw, which was spectacular. Most of it Bloodline related. I kind of forget what happened in between, mostly because I just went
LA Knight, Bray Wyatt, and Undertaker.
Right. That's right. Okay. Yep. We'll get there. We'll get there. I kind of forgot about the timeline of what happened, because after the Bloodline stuff and then after what happened with these two women, I kind of just got pissed off and stopped paying attention as intently as I was, even though I did enjoy the show. Top of the hour, we get her introduction. It's Bayley. She sends Dakota and Io to the back as she's getting ready for the steel cage match. We go to commercial. We come back. Becky gets her big entrance. And then she gets jumped. She gets thrown into the cage. They lock the door. They beat the ever-loving crap out of her. Adam Pearce comes out, unbolts the cage, and tells damage control to the GTFO. And we go to commercial. And that's it. That was the big cage match. Your marquee on WWE.com all day advertised match. That was it. A 3-minute max segment that featured Becky Lynch getting her ass whooped and us not getting the advertised match that we were promised. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, that's dumb, but let me see what they got in store for this. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that they didn't just cut this for something stupid as time restraints. Not 45 minutes later, we get a report from Fightful.com that the match itself was cut for time restraints. What? What? SP3? Explain this one to me. Now, let me start off by saying this. We don't know how much else was cut from everything else on the show. We don't know what else was trimmed. They did mention that there was some fat trimming here or there. But the fact that they cut an entire match that was not going to be no little 5-minute barn burner. This was set to take some major time, I have to believe. The fact that they decided to cut this match out of everything else on the show that also featured an 11-minute D-Generation X reunion that followed it to set up a pointless 6-man tag match that got a decent chunk of time. We had SmackDown segments on this show. SmackDown superstars that were featured. We had to trot Ric Flair's old ass out there to introduce his daughter, even though the last time he was on screen, he wasn't getting along with his daughter. We had to do all of that. I get main eventing with the men because you reveal Brock Lesnar at the end. Even that was rushed. I get it. I understand that. The decision to cut Becky and Bayley from this show is not only mind-boggling, it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to both of those performers, and it's disrespectful to the women's wrestling fans and the fans in general that tuned in specifically to see the match that was promised. But SP3, if we're being honest here, we're celebrating 30 years of Monday Night Raw, so I guess it makes sense to just go on to the age-old tradition of, oh, we're running out of time, let's cut the fucking women's match. Are you kidding me, SP3? Are you kidding me?
What you guys are saying is that Triple H, the great purveyor of women's wrestling, you mean he cut a women's match so he could play 20 years old again with his old friends for 11 minutes? I am shocked. I am shocked. I have not been the guy here standing up here for weeks telling y'all that Paul Levesque don't care about women's wrestling, that he tried to appease you hardcore wrestling fans in NXT and has got you sipping on the Kool-Aid, and y'all thought, oh, women's wrestling is saved. It's saved now that Triple H is in charge. Y'all are in the mud after last night, and I love it. I'm living life and I'm loving it because
I have been just as critical as you have been.
You have. I'm talking to the people. I'm talking to the people.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're clear on this.
I'm talking to the people who argued with me that Triple H, the great purveyor of women's wrestling and tag team wrestling. Yes, we got a whole bunch of more women here on the roster. We got a whole bunch of more tag teams here on the roster. But can anyone seriously say he's taking the time to get anyone over? No. So, honestly, when that steel cage match was cut, so Ric Flair could trot out here with his yellow suit and his black flower suit on, and DX can make jokes that were corny and only saved the segment by Kurt Angle wanting to join DX like he joined the Shield before. I'm not surprised. Ladies and gentlemen. I will never be surprised with all of this because people need to realize that last night it was a great, fun tribute show.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are pinpointing this as like the one big omission and also forgetting the fact that this Raw Rumble, he didn't exactly build to it, and we are only like 5 days away. And Becky Lynch and Bayley have not even been freaking announced for the Women's Royal Rumble match. When you look at the graphic for the Women's Royal Rumble match, that is Rhea Ripley and the Pimps. That's Diana Ross and the Pimps. Like, it's sad. It's sad they have Rhea front and center as the biggest option to pick from, and then it's a whole bunch of people that ain't over. it ain't over. And you have two ladies that are over in Becky Lynch and Bayley. And we couldn't even have a follow-up with Bayley just saying you could have made it 30 seconds, a quick promo. Once we came back from break after the steel cage angle, you could have done Bayley being like, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble match. And then maybe on Raw Talk, you could have had Becky be like, respond and say, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble. No, we didn't. He didn't even have time for that.
I was waiting all night for some kind of shot of Becky in the trainer's room, like some kind of follow-up segment. It was just, nope. Now, they did interview, Damage Control for Raw Talk, but they didn't say anything. They just defended their actions, which was the same stuff we've heard from them, which is we control the narrative. We control what we want to do. I ain't going to put my body on the line because Becky Lynch tells me she wants to. This wasn't really an advancement of the story. This was kicking the can down the road to what should have been the culmination here and now. Yeah. And this matchup, this rivalry, was sacrificed at the altar so we could have Undertaker drive down to the ring in a motorcycle. Now, I know that happened beforehand.
Hey. I am all for, like I said, the things they could have cut. The things I mentioned, the things they could have cut. We did not need Ric Flair to get 2-3 minutes to do that. He could have just said, hey, it's the 30th anniversary of Raw. Here's my daughter, Charlotte. That's all we needed from Ric. I don't need more than that from Ric. I don't need 3 minutes of Hulk Hogan at the beginning of the show. I don't need 11 minutes of DX doing comedy that was funny 25 years ago. It's not funny.
I did enjoy the DX segment in retrospect.
I enjoyed it because of Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was the gem of that. I didn't enjoy it because of anybody from DX, honestly. I mean, they did do a good job of putting over Imperium a hell of a lot more than they did the revival at Raw 25. So
you mean Imperium as Teddy
Imperium, Teddy. I didn't need Teddy Long. I didn't need all the poker segments. Those poker segments were freaking useless, and that was the only woman legend on the damn show because the Bellas was like nah, deuces. They saw the roll call. They were in Philly and they saw the roll call for Monday Night Raw.
They were probably just playing poker. That was probably their assignment.
No, they said, yeah, they was like, oh, y'all want us to play poker? Nah, we too busy. We about to finish up Nikki Bella having a 4-part series on E, so we good. We not gonna show up. Y'all don't want to highlight. Y'all show a little clip of Mercedes winning the women's title. Y'all don't want to show Saraya. Nah, deuces. That's what the Bella said. Yeah, it's egregious that they did that to the woman. There was so many other things that they could have cut, and I'm not even saying you cut the Bloodline segment. The Bloodline deserved every minute that they got from the telephone match to the tribal court of Sami Zayn. I'm not saying you cut Undertaker because that was the first time in quite some time I was happy to see the Undertaker because he came out in the American Badass and I got to hear the Kid Rock song again. I was all fine with that, and they did the little passing of the torch moment with Bray Wyatt. I was fine with all of that. There was stuff to cut on this show. That's why it's sad what they did.
Here's what I would have cut. All right. The whole Miz, Kevin Owens thing, didn't need it. Gone. Get rid of it. Kevin Owens is already on the show on Friday. He could have cut that exact same promo after he wrestles his match on Friday. Okay. That's done. Didn't need to have it. So there's not even travel restrictions there, or travel issues you have to worry about because Kevin Owens is already on both shows. Why was Charlotte and Sonya even on this show? If you're going to go ahead and do that, you don't need Sonya versus Bianca Belair. Just have Bianca Belair come out, do the whole thing with Charlotte, and then have them just beat up Sonya. Don't have her lose another fucking match before she gets a women's title shot, presumably at the Royal Rumble. This is what Santos said. The comment I mentioned I was going to bring up earlier. Appreciate that we're two of your favorite people. Thank you very much. Always appreciate you tuning into the show. He said, I enjoyed Raw. It was entertaining from beginning to end. One thing I want to see soon is Sonya Deville start racking up some W's. She's one of my favorites. Sonya Deville has not done a damn thing other than lose since she stopped being the Raw GM. Yep. All she does is lose, and yet she's in a program.
And mind you, I did also tweet about this. When did they refer to Sonya Deville as the Raw general manager? I know that was the role she played, but they legitimately, for a whole year, went out their way to never refer to her as the Raw general manager.
Correct. I would have done the segment, but I would not have done the match because You knew Sonya wasn't going to beat Bianca, so why give her another L? If you want to have those two beat up Sonya Deville like they did with LA Knight earlier, I was worried they were going to feed LA Knight to Taker. I was very happy that it was Bray that whooped his ass instead. So you could have done something similar if that was the plan. Could have cut that time. Boom. I just saved you 8 minutes. So if you had 2 minutes to do the segment, I just saved you 8 more. You could have given us a 10-minute cage match. That would have been better. That would have been better. This was insulting. It was egregious. I cannot believe that they've done that, because what Triple H, and it's not like this was some rando cage match. This is Becky Lynch and Bayley. These are two of the most decorated, talented women's performers you have ever had. And you just cut them like they didn't matter. Triple H is not treating them like the stars that they are. He hasn't even been able to come up with a program for worthy of Ronda Rousey's time, and now he hasn't come up with a program that's worthy of Charlotte Flair's time yet. And it's like, what are we doing? This women's division is stuck in the damn mud right now, and it needs a massive, massive rejuvenation. I've seen people in the comments bring up they need Asuka back. They need fucking something. They need something. They need some TLC from the creative department is what they need right now. I was, like so many others, looking forward to this Becky and Bayley rivalry. And through no fault of their own, it hasn't lived up to the hype because they won't let these two cook, for lack of a better term. Just let these two work their magic. God dang. And Ace, I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed, man. I'm just disappointed. We got a lot more to get to, including the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin has reportedly been offered big money for another return match. The opponent differs per report, SP3, but we have seen Roman Reigns' name thrown out there. We have seen Brock Lesnar's name thrown out there. I don't think either one of those is going to happen, but when you hear Stone Cold Steve Austin's name mentioned in a possible match with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, what does that do for you?
I'm totally fine with Roman Reigns versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, because it would basically fit into my theme. And I said this before when we first talked about Stone Cold Steve Austin coming back, is that I really feel like they should use the equity in Stone Cold Steve Austin to put over a main star, a full-time star of WWE. So him losing to Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship in the main event, I'm totally fine with, because like I said, I don't see why WWE would lose out on all the money by having someone like a Sami Zayn or Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania and beat him for the championship when they're this close to 1,000 days. So I'm totally fine with him versus a legend like Stone Cold or The Rock. Him versus Brock Lesnar, now you're pushing it on what you're trying to do to Stone Cold's body there. So yeah, I understand the people that were against that idea and why the report says that was an idea, and also says that it was scrapped and moved up out of here, because that does not need to happen right now.
I think Stone Cold was like, I don't care how many damn zeros are on that check. I ain't getting in the ring with Brock Lesnar at this point in my life. I'm happy you brought up Cody Rhodes, by the way. That's another thing you could have cut, is the Cody Rhodes video package. You want to know why, SP3? Because you're going to show the same damn thing this fucking Friday.
Yeah.
You've done it every week. You've shown the same Cody Rhodes video package twice. So you're going to run it twice anyway. Cut that. Saved you 4 minutes right there. That's a 14-minute cage match you could have done.
And I don't know if this is like my Cody Rhodes biased against him from him flipping me off all the way back in 2017, but the way they have paid these video packages on both Raw and SmackDown for the past 4 weeks, this feels like the most telegraphed Royal Rumble win ever. And I'm at the point where I'm like, don't do it. Because I don't do it, because this is too telegraphed. It's too telegraphed at this point.
We'll talk about that more with Seahawk coming up on Thursday on our Royal Rumble prediction show. We'll talk about this as well. This was something that came out middle of last week after our last show on Tuesday. The fact that SP3 The Rock says, reportedly, again, this is Wrestling Observer, he does not feel like he can get in the shape where he needs to be to have the kind of match that would live up to the hype of Rock versus Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania 39 in Los Angeles. Are you buying it or not? Do you think this is a giant smokescreen to stave the audience off from the obvious? and get some kind of a genuine shock reaction pop if he does show up at the Royal Rumble or otherwise?
I'm believing it a lot more than I was when the report originally came out because of the change that they did to Raw 30 and scrapping the Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony. Because I thought that was a clear indication that they were going to start the build to The Rock or give us a hint that The Rock would show up at the Royal Rumble. But now that we didn't get that, I start to believe this a little bit more. So I am more, I would say 55-45, believing that Rock will not be at WrestleMania 39.
Yeah, I don't know. If it's a smokescreen, they've done a damn good job, because now I am doubting it. This is exactly why this kind of report would get out there. Now, I think it's very important to note, if you're one of these people who says that you're not buying the report because The Rock is in tremendous shape, looks like he was carved out of marble, right? There is a big difference between being jacked and ripped and being in in-ring shape. So we're talking about the cardio here to go out there and put on a 15, 20, possibly 30-minute main event of WrestleMania 39. That's where The Rock's concern would have to lie. And look, The Rock is also one of these guys. He doesn't want to go out there and have a Taker and Kane in Saudi Arabia. He doesn't want to have that. He doesn't want to come out of retirement like Shawn Michaels and put on a stinker. He wants to be a guy who can go out there and still be the great one. So if he doesn't feel like he's going to do that, he ain't going to do that. I think I'm 50-50 right now. We'll also talk about this more with Seahawk coming up on Thursday. Real quick, though, we got to get into this.
It's time to answer the 5 count on the Bleav Podcast Network.
All right, SP3, the 5 big questions. Today, we will start with the fact that it was the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw. A lot of great memories, a lot of bad ones. What's your all-time favorite match, SP3, in the 30-year history of Monday Night Raw? You got one that comes to mind?
I got a few. I got like a whole top 10 list that I can give y'all of classic ones. If you go back to like the first year of Monday Night Raw, you had Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty for the first time on Monday Night Raw. They kind of like the culmination of Michaels throwing Marty into the barbershop window, and Marty comes back out of nowhere and defeats him for the Intercontinental Championship. It was one of those kind of early day surprises on Monday Night Raw. I can go a year later to the classic Bret Hart versus 1-2-3 Kid matchup in 1994 for the WWF Championship. But if I had to pick one match that is my all-time favorite, I can't pick one. I could pick two. It's a tie. I go to March 1997, British Bulldog versus Owen Hart in the European Championship Finals in Germany. Such a great atmosphere, and to see Bulldog pull out like junior heavyweight moves when he was more of a power guy at that time in his WWF career, that was just a classic kind of catch as catch can matchup. You had the underlying story with them being brother-in-laws, also their kind of like dissension in their tag team partnership when they were tag team champions, all that stuff culminating there for the European Championship, an historic moment in WWE history. And then my all-time favorite is probably the two-man power trip versus Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit from May 2001, the match where Triple H famously tore his quad for the first time. I just remember that match being so electric with the crowd. The crowd desperately wanting the Canadian Chris's to become the WWF Tag Team Champions, and them pulling it out. And then the historic significance of that matchup with Triple H tearing his quad. That's the one that always comes to my mind.
I'm close to the time frame of yours, but and it's well documented that my long-term memory is dog anus. All right. Like I constantly have to be reminded of the timeline of things. Like I couldn't even remember what happened in between the cage match that wasn't and the freaking Bloodline segment last night. You had to remind me of that. All right. So my long-term memory is terrible. So for something to truly stick with me after 21 years, where I can still remember how I felt, to where I still get goosebumps thinking about it, that's what that meant something. And the match that stands out to me was all the way back in 2002 for the WWE Undisputed Heavyweight Championship, The Undertaker defending in a ladder match against Jeff Hardy. My God, man. And I've talked about this before. I grew up Edge, Christian, the Hardys. Those were my guys. I started watching wrestling in 97, 98 when they started coming up. So I grew up as their careers blossomed. So to think that Jeff Hardy was going to shock the world, was going to be the 16 seed that upset the number 1 seed, right? Was going to walk away, something unfathomable at the time. This was a long time before Jeff ever won the WWE Championship, something we didn't think was ever going to be a possibility. Also a great match, Michaels versus Shelton Benjamin. The fact that I was on my seat the entire time, I was cheering, I was screaming, the raw emotion, thinking that Jeff Hardy had a chance. And when he laid Taker out with that chair shot, and he was crawling, army crawling up the ladder, and he got JR going, climb the ladder, kid, make yourself famous, get goosebumps. Anytime I think about that, arguably JR's greatest call as a commentator, I'll fight anybody on that. That match to me will always live with me. It is one of my all-time favorites. It's going to be hard to top that one for sure. Last night, the main event of Monday Night Raw SP3 was interrupted by Brock Lesnar. He helped, if you want to say that, Theory retain his United States Championship by F5ing him on top of Bobby Lashley to get the 1, 2, 3. It was a fun little finish. I did like it because he doesn't give a fuck about either two of these guys, but he still has beef with Bobby Lashley. SP3, does that mean our hopes and dreams of a Brock Lesnar versus Gunther match at WrestleMania were dashed last night?
I mean, it was more dashed with Dave Meltzer's follow-up when he said that when he originally heard the report of Brock versus Gunther, he got told by people within WWE that that's not happening. So this indication that we're going to see the continuation of Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley is what I originally thought where we were going to get after the finish at Crown Jewel. So it makes sense to me. I would like to see Brock also in the men's Royal Rumble match to have more encounter with Bobby Lashley, because I always like when the men's Royal Rumble sets up or develops a rivalry going into WrestleMania. So hopefully they do that there, and maybe we can get Brock and Gunther crossing paths there, and maybe people's dreams are not dashed.
That's what I want, man. Like, maybe they do that match at SummerSlam instead, but at least lay the seeds for it, because that's something that's fresh and interesting and makes me go, ooh. And when I go, ooh, that means I really fucking want to see something. So I want Gunther to get that level of a push, man. I want him to be put in that kind of a match and go over on somebody like that and really elevate that man. Maybe it's still a little too early with him being the Intercontinental Champion. Maybe, okay, fine. You want to do Brock and Lashley at WrestleMania? And yeah, Steven, I think we do. I think we do, because we still haven't had a satisfying Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley match, because both of those finishes were very...
One of the finishes had nothing to do with either guy. It was more about Roman Reigns, and then the finish at Crown Jewel was just to set up this next match. So let them have their final big matches, and this is what Brock does. Brock loves his 3-match series. He did it with Goldberg. He did it with Roman. Did it with Seth. So just let him get it out of his system.
Yeah, let these two go out there and just beat the holy hell out of each other for 10, 12 minutes. Let us get a decisive winner, whomever it's going to be. It should be Lashley, by the way. Whomever it's going to be, let us get it ended at WrestleMania. I'm hoping this is the dream matchup that actually lives up on that, because again, the two finishes of their first 2 matches just really, it has left me wanting more. So that's why I'm not mad that we're getting this match, but I love the idea of Gunther versus Brock Lesnar so much more than seeing this match for a 3rd time, but I'm still not mad at it. One of the segments that I did enjoy last night, even though I was very nervous about it at first, was the LA Knight calling out the veterans. Then we get the gong, and it's going to be Undertaker and LA Knight. And I'm like, are we really about to get old ass potbelly Undertaker kicking LA Knight's ass? Because I don't want to see that. Do not feed a current talent to an old retired veteran, please, for the love of God. And then we get Bray Wyatt coming out, and I thought what we saw was much better than what had originally played out in my mind. Really didn't feed any current talents to the old vets, right? Like even D-Generation X backed away from Imperium, as they should, because they're all old and retired. Okay, great, cool. I did like Triple H going, Kurt will fight you. And he's like, no, I will not. I am not doing that. So that was, again, I enjoyed that segment. I enjoyed this segment with The Undertaker as well, because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But then after LA Knight gets tossed to Bray, he gets the Sister Abigail, we get Taker going up and whispering something to Bray Wyatt. We ever going to find out what that was, SP3, or are we just left to assume that this was Undertaker going, it's your time now?
I am a excellent lip reader, and I found out what he said. He said, "Hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear. Tell me something I like to hear. Got a nasty ass butt." And so that's what I think. The Undertaker said to Bray. He also said, "Yo, trust me, I was having mid matches for over a decade. Find yourself a Kurt Angle, and you'll be good money, honey. Don't worry. Change up your look. You changed it up. This is your American badass time, where you can where you can squash DDPs of the world and Chris Canyons. You'll be great at it." That's what he said to him.
I don't know what he said to him, but if this was supposed to be that symbolic passing of the torch moment, I didn't really get that. And if there was a time for a symbolic passing of the torch moment from Undertaker to Bray Wyatt, it should have been back at WrestleMania 31 when these guys wrestled and Bray should have won.
Yeah, but Vince was in creative. Apparently, WrestleVote said that Undertaker even told Vince to take care of him even back then. So,
and I'm
not gonna put that on the Undertaker, even though it's the Undertaker. If you wanted to say you were gonna lose, you could have lost, my dude.
Yeah, I will go to my grave insisting that Bray Wyatt should have been the one to end the streak, not Brock Lesnar the year before that. That's just my opinion. Let's change some gears over to AEW SP3, because there's some interesting things that are going on there, including what seems to be a massive shift in its women's division, and arguably the best women's storyline going on between either of these two companies right now. Definitely seems like Saraya and Toni Storm have now switched over to the dark side and have kind of made this a homegrown AEW talent versus the WWE chick kind of thing, and makes a lot of people thinking maybe Ruby Soho might be next to make that heel turn. Your thoughts on Saraya and Toni Storm going one way, which probably means we're getting that full-on fledged babyface turn for Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, which seems to be long overdue at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes the whole world of sense to me. Over on the True Hill Heat YouTube channel, me and Jimmy Macaron, we reviewed AEW Dynamite every week, and we said after the Saraya promo with Britt Baker was just, and she was like, "I worked in Madison Square Garden, I worked in the O2, I'm better than all of y'all." Basically, that's what she said in that promo. I was like, she's the heel. Like we were both like, she came off like the heel here, and her reaction ever since then has developed to more and more boos every week. So this is the credit to AEW that they listen to the fans. They went with Jamie Hayter when she was the hot commodity, and they made her the AEW Women's World Championship, and they're not going to fight against the reaction she's getting as well as the reaction that Saraya's getting, and they're gonna let her go heel. And with Toni Storm, I thought that was like the most confident and aggressive Toni Storm has come off in a few months. So I like Toni Storm in this direction. I like Saraya in this direction. And if it all develops to a AEW homegrown versus AEW outsiders at Blood and Guts this year, I am all for it. Give me Saraya, Toni Storm, Ruby Soho, Serena Deeb, and you could throw in maybe someone new coming in, or an Athena, and versus the AEW outsiders of Dr. Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Hikaru Shida, Willow Nightingale, and then throw in Jade Cargill in there as well as the big time person to come at the end for the homegrown.
I know a lot of people are sitting here and they're saying, maybe this is a time you could bring in Mercedes Moné. I think that's going to be a pipe dream for a while. Look, we had reports that she was a lock in for that tag team match on January 11th, and then that didn't come to fruition. And you had Dave Meltzer saying she ain't going to AEW. I'm starting to believe Uncle Dave here on this one. She just seems to be, let me do my new Japan Pro Wrestling thing. Let me see how this Vince Sale things comes up. I still think eventually she's going to go back to WWE as long as Triple H is in charge of creative. But that, who knows how long that's lasts. That's a long way away. So I think that's a pipe dream.
You said that after last night?
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. I can't argue. Can't argue. That's a very, very, very good point. One thing that I thought that I was very, very happy to see. This isn't even a question, SP3. It was going to be a question until right around 11 a.m. or so this morning, if I have my timeline down, which is what on God's green earth is it going to take for Warner Brothers and Discovery to make a good decision here? And it wasn't that much longer. After Meltzer reported last night that Mark Briscoe, after the absolutely horrific and just completely messed up incident that happened last week, the passing of Jay Briscoe in that car accident, reporting last night that Mark Briscoe was still going to be banned from AEW and they wouldn't let them do a tribute show last week. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, guys, make the right decision. This is beyond petty at this point for a company that's still showing that slap fight bullshit. I mean, the double standard here is ridiculous, especially, you know, from a guy who genuinely spent years learning and trying to be better than the mistakes that he made a decade ago, right? And it's like, just let these people mourn their fallen brother and put on a tribute show and let his brother wrestle on the damn show. And Meltzer said they weren't going to do that, but things could change. SP3, thank God they changed, because Mark Briscoe is going to be wrestling on Dynamite tomorrow in Lexington. And they have now been given permission to do some kind of Jay Briscoe tribute on the show as well, which, thank you. Like, this is the bare minimum that Warner Brothers and Discovery could do. But Jesus, thank you for doing the right thing on this one.
Yes, because I was getting really disgusted with Warner Brothers Discovery because, mind you, all of this was, God bless, Jay and his family. Our thoughts and condolences to his family. But this was Jay Briscoe's tweet. This was Jay Briscoe's comments. This was nothing to do with Mark. Mark has paid the price for his brother's comments for far too long, and the fact that there was even a report that Warner Brothers Discovery were going to keep Mark Briscoe off of the television, I was just disgusted by that because Mark did not do anything. Mark didn't say anything. Like, that's what made it just baffling. So I'm so glad he has the opportunity in Lexington, Kentucky to perform. He's going to be out there with one of Jay Briscoe's all-time great rivals and Jay Lethal, the guy that he propped up to the main event level in Ring of Honor. It's going to be a special night, and I'm just great that Mark has the opportunity to grieve in a proper way for a professional wrestler, because if you looked at BTE being the elite this week, the Young Bucks said, like, coming to the arena, talking to people that know Jay, reminiscing about Jay, and being able to wrestle, that was kind of the relief and the kind of putting their emotions into that. They needed that to start to process things, and I don't think Mark has been able to really process everything, because on Tuesday his brother passes away, on Wednesday it's his birthday, then he's dealing with his nieces in the hospital. He's dealt with so much. I'm just glad he has this opportunity tomorrow.
Yeah, Frantic World saying that Warner Brothers Discovery should still be ashamed for not letting Jay Briscoe on Dynamite. It is a shame that we didn't get to watch those guys perform on AEW Dynamite, and it's I'm with you. I think people grow, people can change, and this is a guy who went out of his way to educate himself and to better himself, and everybody spoke so highly of him. Not even before the accident happened, they always spoke very highly of this man, and it does suck that we're never going to get to see those guys perform. A couple more comments here. Steven Chambers saying Thunder Rosa, maybe. And that blood and guts match. That would be. What do you think about that, SP3? Thunder Rosa on the same team as Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker?
That would be something because the whole rivalry between Britt and Thunder Rosa started because Britt felt that Thunder Rosa was an outsider as well. So that would really say something of how she's grown if she accepts Thunder Rosa onto that side. But about their personal things and stuff, I don't
Yeah.
know how that would go.
Yeah, that's what I'm sitting here thinking. I'm like, man, that would be cool, but I don't know if they could like literally coexist because they really don't like each other, but they've wrestled before. They have, if they're not locking up with one another, maybe they would be more apt to work with Thunder Rosa. I don't know. Had a couple other suggestions here I wanted to bring up. Mick Foley versus Triple H, Falls Count Anywhere on Raw. As one of the all-time favorite matches. Trish Stratus versus Lita for the WWE Women's Championship as well in Raw in 2004. Great suggestions for all-time favorite Raw matches. There's been a lot of good ones. I wish we had saw another great women's match on Raw.
Cena's had two of the greatest Raw matches of all time. His near 1 hour Broadway in London back in 2007 with Shawn Michaels, and the classic matchup with CM Punk ahead of WrestleMania 29 when Punk pulls out the power driver and everybody minds melted because they hadn't seen a power driver on WWE television in so long.
Oh my gosh. Are you surprised at all we didn't see any CM Punk clips in the Raw highlights there, SP3 last night?
Hey, WWE, how you doing? Hype bomb, one of your top 5 greatest Raw moments of all time. Not Cena getting drafted to Raw.
Yeah, arguably top 3, maybe even top 2, maybe even number 1. I mean, we live in an era now, man, where they remember and embrace history. They openly talk about other companies existing. We know CM Punk existed. We know he was on Raw. Huh?
Won't go that far. Won't go that far. They show Bryan Danielson and Chris Jericho. Won't show them no CM Punk though.
Nope. They surely will not. Make sure to join us this Thursday, by the way. Appreciate everybody's tuning into the show today. Whether that's the audio podcast form, whether that's a video here on YouTube. Again, thumbs up, hammer that subscribe button. We really appreciate you guys doing that. We love entertaining you guys every Tuesday. We will be back 9 a.m. This will be the pre-recorded show. It's our Royal Rumble prediction show with Cameron Hawkins from The Ringer. He will be our special guest picker. I think, we got like 4 matches to break down, but there's 2 Rumble matches, so there's a lot to dive into on that. And maybe, just maybe, I'll bring back the Do You Believe You Can Beat SP3 Trivia Challenge. Maybe there's a chance I'll bring that back in 2023 SP3. Maybe. We'll see if I have time to get it done. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter at Rick Ucchino. For those listening on the podcast feed, that is UCCHINO. There's also a K in there. It's not Rick like Ric Flair. Follow him at True Heel SP3, spelled with 2 E's and heel. And got a lot of coverage that's going to be coming your way, both here and for SB Nation cage side seats, live from the Royal Rumble in San Antonio. Looking forward to that. Unfortunately, SP3, I did not plan this out well. My flight leaves an hour after the AFC Championship game kicks off on Sunday. So, God, I hope they have those little TVs in the back. It's a Delta flight, so I have my fingers crossed. God dang it. Usually they put the Bengals in the early window. All right. Anyway, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Bet on that game. If you're going to bet on that game, I'm taking the Bengals with a high ankle sprain for Pat Mahomes. You can do that at Bet Online. We would not be here without Bet Online. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you on Thursday.